The question that I have is on one of my listings. It's a $2.4 million warehouse located in High Point, North Carolina. Everything's in line with market rates, and the comps, the pricing makes sense given where the comps are at. The owner said that he doesn't want to pay our commission directly. He wants to net at least 2.3, but we could add our commission on top. So I was wondering, would it be an effective way to almost wholesale this deal, or should I use a net commission structure where it's hey, I'm gonna put you down for 2.3 million. Anything above 2.3, we the brokerage gets to keep.
What do you think it's a good enough deal to pitch this deal out at 2.4 or 2.45, 2.5? Do you think it makes sense?
Yeah, it does make sense.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so I would push it out at probably 2.5. The only question that really dictates if you should wholesale it or add a fee is, what do you think the actual value is? What do you think it'll actually sell for?
3. I think it could sell for 3.1.
Okay, great. Then, all day long. Look, if you think it's that good of a deal, all day long, then I would just buy it, lock it into contract at $2.3 million, put down a deposit on your own, and actually double close on this deal.
All right, cool.
If you run your numbers tight, I would pitch this. So what you do is that, if you want to put some feelers out there, call up a buyer who you think would buy this deal all day long. You can pitch the deal to them at $3 million and see what they say.
All right, cool. Perfect.
The good thing is that basically what you're doing here is that you're basically going to get some quick feelers, right? So if you pitch it out to a couple buyers and listen, 3 million makes absolutely 0 cents whatsoever. I would only offer 2.3. You know that this might not be as good of a deal as you think so. However, if you call up a few buyers and you say, hey, listen, I got this deal locked up. Here's all the details. It's $3 million. And they're like, listen, I'll offer you 3 million or 2.9, 3.1, whatever. You know that you need to lock this deal up right away.
Very cool. Very cool. I appreciate you. I'll get on that today.
Have you done any deals where the seller wants to sell their property after just recently purchasing? Let's say they just bought it in 2023 and end of the year, October, November, and now they're trying to resell it. Is that something that you've had any experience with at all, or have you had any recent flips like that at all?
First off, yes. Second of all, I think it's you have to keep in mind that when you have those types of individuals, they need to make a return most of the time, right? They're not going to sell their property at a loss. They're not going to sell their property without, possibly coming out of pocket. They probably don't need to sell it. However, there are a few, it's really understanding what their current position is in regards to selling it, right? Some of them might need to sell it because they have a loan that's coming due. They got a 12-month hard money loan. They have a 24-month hard money loan, right? They need to refinance out of, and they might need to, maybe they can't refinance. That being said, that's going to change their situation. Right. Then there's also going to be people who have absolutely no reason to sell it, but if they got a good price, they might consider it. Right. So it's really coming down, really understanding the motivation of the individual. Once you've got the idea of their motivation and why they're even considering selling so soon, which I know that, we've spoken about several instances together about properties that might be in this situation. Keep in mind that this is actually where you can make quite a good amount of money as a broker or as a wholesaler or whatever. Because if hypothetically they bought it for $800,000 and now they're willing to take 1.3 and the property's actually worth, and they got such a good deal, it's actually worth 1.5, you can still make some good money. Or maybe you can, and maybe they bought it for $800,000 and they really, maybe they'll take $1 million because they only want to make maybe they're open to taking a smaller profit and it's actually worth 1.2 or 1.3 or 1.4, right? So it's just keep in mind that there's a lot of opportunities with these types of deals. However, if they overpaid, I've seen people that they did a 1031 exchange and they paid $4 million for a property that's maybe only worth 3.5 or 3 million now because they bought it, last year at the beginning of the year in January where interest rates were still 5.5% and they overpaid by a little bit. But just keep in mind that it's really understanding the current situation of the client, why they bought it, why they're willing to sell it, where they need to be in order to sell it. So there's opportunities there, but there's also a lot of those types of situations that you need to find that you just need to cut off, right? As soon as they say yeah, I'm open to selling it, but it needs to be X crazy price. Don't waste all your time, energy, and effort with those people.
From a buyer's perspective, though, have you had any, you get someone interested and then they're like, oh, well, he just bought it in 2023. Do you get any bad feedback on the buyers then? Are they totally not interested once they hear that, or as long as the deal makes sense now?
I would always start a conversation when you're trying to pitch a deal with that. Pitch a deal and say hey, look, this guy actually just bought it last year and he's actually very open to selling the property right now because he wants to get out of it into a 1031 exchange into something else. And I like to just kind of answer that right away, right? Because that's, you want to get into their head of oh, I know what they're thinking. They're going to come back to me with this objection. That's why I want to answer it and bring it up as fast as possible. It can be a really good thing that they want to sell right now. You can find really, really good deals because they bought a great deal and now you can get a good deal. But there's also a lot of times where maybe they want too stupid of a number, and you shouldn't be wasting your time at all, right? And you need to figure that out and see which side of the coin you're really on.
I just have to figure that out right now. So, all right, thanks.
Yeah, I guess my question is kind of similar. I'm getting a ton of deal flow, but a lot of the numbers isn't making sense. And that's even like retail stuff that's listed on the market, not like LoopNet or Crexy, but on the residential side. So just wanted to see from your perspective or anyone else, like how are you guys, making these deals work in this current market? And I'm in Atlanta, so I know some of you guys are in other cities that may have the same scenario. Is it just the numbers? Just talk to more people, find more deals, get, more motivating factors?
I think this is something that we're all experiencing across the country, right? Like, I think it's something to keep in mind that like everywhere, all around the country, you're going to experience properties right now, possibly more than ever, where the deals just don't, quote, make sense. So keep in mind that the only ways to overcome this situation are, there's a few of them, right? Number one, like you had mentioned, it's a numbers game, right? How many leads are you actually generating every single month, right? So I'll ask you quickly, just for, for us to kind of role play the situation, how many leads are you generating right now on a monthly basis?
Yeah, 5 to 10. 5
to 10. Great. So if you're generating 5 to 10 leads a month, which means that you're probably generating a lead somewhere between every third day to every 5 days, right? One lead every 5 days or one lead every 3 days during the month. Do you think that's enough leads to actually substantially growing a business to several six figures, let alone a 7-figure business?
So that's what I'm kind of trying to figure out, because I'm just now starting to prospect and target commercial properties. So I did trail back my numbers a little bit just based on the difference in sales price.
So keep in mind that like 5 to 10 leads in any business, I don't care if you're selling commercial property, insurance, financial advisory, yachts, jets, anything. It doesn't matter what you're selling, right? Right? You could be selling bottles of water here, right? You could be selling anything, coffee, whatever. If you only have 5 to 10 leads a month that you're generating, it is not going to be enough, especially in this type of market, for you to be hitting any type of substantial numbers, let alone even closing a few deals. So it's like, right now in this type of economy, like, because let me give you a reference. If you were in this business in 2020, 2021, 2022, and interest rates were like 2%, or call it zero, but 2%, 1, 2, and 3% interest rates for property, you could generate 20 leads and probably close one deal, maybe 2 deals, right? Because that's just how good the economy was. In this type of economy, you might need to generate 3 to 5 times as many leads to close half as many transactions. Right. So if 20 leads got closed 2 deals, as an example, now you might have to generate 100 leads to close 1. And that's, again, this is just one way to look at it, because that's one way, right? You should be generating more leads. That's number one, because right now the economy is a little bit more tough. Interest rates are higher, right? There's not as much motivation going on. Number 2, again, is that, like you had mentioned, also the motivation. What types of lead lists are you prospecting? And you should be trying to prospect possibly more motivated lead lists. Because if you're calling somebody, as an example, in the majority of the leads that you're prospecting right now, of the 5 to 10 leads you're generating, what types of asset classes are those? And what's your price range right now?
Multifamily, anywhere between 1 mil to about 20.
I'd also be curious to understand, are you structuring deals with seller financing opportunities where hey, they want $10 million. It might not be worth $10 million if you did a straight up purchase, but if they're open to seller, are you asking the questions if they're open to seller financing and trying to deal structure a little bit more creatively?
I have.
Yeah. And what are they saying?
Not much success as of yet.
Keep in mind that a good portion of the deals that we're doing right now, at least about a third of the deals that we're working on right now that we're closing, are seller financing deals, which is finding the sellers who are open to it and then deal structuring creatively where the seller's happy and the buyer's happy.
Okay.
Right.
Does it look like, because one of the, strategies I've been leading with is the seller holdback on the equity portion. So we'd still bring debt and they would be able to walk away with something, depending on whatever debt they have on it. And then there's, that 20% equity holdback, 10 to 20.
Got it. Keep in mind that depending on their current situation, seller financing with like an equity holdback, that deal structure might not be lucrative for somebody. Because think about if you own a $10 million property, okay? You own a $10 million property, you have a $5 million loan or even a $6 million loan. So you have, call it $4 or $5 million worth of equity. And I said, hey, would you be open to an equity holdback? If you own a $10 million property and you're cash flowing nicely, why on planet Earth would you sell it for an equity holdback?
I mean, it would depend on the person and their motivation, but I guess some of the conversations I've had is more so like management. So just wanting to kind of get out of the operation and and still be able to generate some income?
The only time I've ever seen that equity holdbacks are actually incredibly lucrative for somebody is exactly like you mentioned. They're having an incredibly terrible experience when it comes to management. They don't want to deal with it anymore, but what they want to do is that they just want to collect a paycheck for the rest of their life, right? They just want a nice, easy paycheck. Maybe they're in their 70s and they're just trying to retire. But you understand, like, that's not the vast majority. The vast majority of people have an operating deal where it's operating well, right, at a high level, and they want to pull some cash off the table, wouldn't you? So what we have found is that the only way to really make a lot of these seller financing deals make sense is that they need to be walking away with a substantial amount of cash, right? Now, substantial means something different to everybody, but they need to be walking away with some decent amount of cash. I would not lead with an equity holdback. I would lead with saying, how much money down do you need in order to make sense of selling the property? If I was able to get you your price, let's say you own a $10 million property, Dominique, and you're like, I don't want to sell it. Unless you got me $12 million for my property, $15 million for my property. Say, okay, let's just say I can get you your price, Dominique. How much money down would you need in order to make sense of selling? Now it gets you to think like, oh, okay, well, I need $5 million down. I want $5 million in my bank, and then I can consider selling. It's like, and also I have a loan of $5 million. So I want $15 million for my property, and I have a $5 million loan on it, but I want $5 million down net in my pocket in order to sell this property, and I'll hold $5 million. But do you now see how they're accomplishing the goal possibly that they want to accomplish, right? Like, you don't want to just shove a goal down their throat if that's not their goal. That's why I like to ask, like, how much money down would you need? What kind of interest would you need? And asking the questions in which get them to tell me what types of terms they would agree to, versus the vast majority of the time, like with equity holdbacks, it's not a situation which most people would be open to. Is that making sense?
It does, but I guess if the person has debt on it, how are they able to, or what would be, is it just offering above or a competitive price point where it would still make sense for them to do the seller financing if they also had debt on it? Because they would.
So you have to sometimes pay off their debt. I mean, like unless they're willing to hold a second position financing note, which a lot of people are willing to hold second position notes. Like, I'll give you an example, right? I have a small little multifamily property, 10 units. And on that property, we've been offered on it $2.2 million, $2.2 million. And I have $1 million loan on it right now. Someone can't come to me and say, hey, I'll give you $500,000 down and you finance the rest. I can't do that. That doesn't make any sense to me because I have $1 million loan. But if someone says, hey, listen, would you be open to holding a note in the second position? I'll go get bank financing. This is what they're saying to me. The purchaser. I'll go get a bank loan for as much money as I can. Probably they could, based on the income, they could probably get a loan for $1.3 or $1.4 million. And then I'll put down an additional $200,000 or $300,000. So that means in total, I'll put down something around $1.7-ish million, and I'll hold back a second position note at $500,000. I'm paying off my current loan and then clearing $600,000 or $700,000 in my pocket, and I will hold a note for $500,000 and be paid off my $500,000 over a period of time. Is that making sense?
Yeah, that's the same strategy I mentioned. So I guess I just defined the equity differently than the seller note, the seller carry. But yeah, that's the strategy I had in mind.
The seller still needs to be able to take money off the table. That's the biggest thing. A lot of the time, they're going to want to take money off the table. And obviously with equity holdback, I'm not saying it's a bad option. What I recommend is typically saying, what terms would you agree to? If I were able to get your price, would you be open to seller financing or doing some type of creative financing? Would you be open to holding a second position note on the property and and deal structuring with them and, asking the right questions? Because there's a lot of deals right now where we're able to pay market value. I have a strip center right now where I'm able to pay market value on it, and my return, my IRR on this property is 30+%. I'm paying market value, or just about market value. I'm paying a 5.75 cap rate. Technically, it's a blended over year one of around a 7, but right now, day one, it's a 5.75% cap rate. I'm paying market value, but I'm putting less than 20% down. The seller's holding the rest of the mortgage, right? So it's a first position seller financing note. I'm putting down $350,000 on a $1.65 million deal, and I'm cash flowing 17.5% on my money day one. So I'm paying market value. It's a 5.75 cap. I mean, it's not a stellar cap rate deal. Okay, the price per square foot's okay, right? I'm paying about a $94, $93 per square foot price, but my cash on cash is phenomenal. And if I can increase all the rents the way I'm already predicting, even though these leases are a little bit longer than I would like, I'm still going to have a 30+% IRR if I even hold the property for only 2 years. at a bare minimum. So I'm paying market value, which a lot of people aren't willing to pay, and I'm paying a sub 6 cap on a deal, but I have structured really, really good seller financing. Is there any more clarity you feel like you need?
Yeah.